Hello, hello, hello. What's going on? Welcome back to Spin Cycle Live. I'm your host, Nathan Hale. We are back again. Today is Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. And boy, do we have a lot to get into today, from election coverage that just happened to some kind of interesting stories that came out. We got Spartacus back up in the news again. We'll make sure we get to him. But first, how are you all doing today? Tell me what's going on. How's your week been? How's your Wednesday going? We're halfway through the week today. Must feel good. The end is in sight. The weekend's almost here. It's our last episode of Spin Cycle Live for this week. So, it's this is a highlight for me, guys. Like, it's the last episode of the week, right? We're here with some amazing brand new stories. I, of course, get to give you all of the amazing coverage and yap my mouth off for the next 30 or so minutes about all of it. But I hope you're all doing so good. I hope everything's out there. Just a reminder, we are live. We are live on Instagram, YouTube, Rumble, of course, Instagram. Did I say Instagram already? Instagram, YouTube, Rumble, X. Yeah, X, of course, right? Follow me on all those different platforms. All of our updates are coming out on all of there. If you like me so much, give me a follow on X. That's where everything that I'm talking about is coming from. So you want to hear more about me, what I'm doing every day? That's the place to be at. So, we're up on TikTok too. We have a TikTok account, but looks like TikTok's going to get banned again in a few days. So we have a story coming on. We have a story on that's coming up in just a couple minutes. So I guess let's get right into it. So our first story of the week is about Hunter Biden. So Hunter Biden is back in the news again. Hunter Biden has been disbarred in Washington, D.C. So Hunter Biden agrees to be stripped of license to practice law in D.C. court, records show. All right. So former first son and convicted felon Hunter Biden agreed to be disbarred from practicing law in Washington, D.C., court records show. Blah, 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 blah. Did I not highlight any of this? All my highlights are going away on the first page. This happened on Monday too. I had all these highlights and they all disappeared. Hopefully they're on the other pages, but I got to read through this. So Biden filed an affidavit under seal on Tuesday acknowledging his consent to disbarment, D.C. Court of Appeal records show. He was suspended immediately from the practice of law in Washington, D.C. in June 2024 following his felony conviction in a Delaware federal court. Biden will officially be disbarred in the D.C. Court of Appeals, accepts a disciplinary agency's recommendation and his own consent for disbarment, according to the New York Post. The former first son's Washington, D.C. bar member standing currently reads that he is under temp disciplinary suspension, Fox News Digital found on Wednesday morning. Biden has been licensed to practice law in the nation's capital since 2007. Biden was found guilty in June 2024 for lying about his drug use when purchasing a firearm in 2018. The former first son has a long history of drug abuse, which was documented in his 2021 memoir, Beautiful Things. The book was repeatedly referenced by both prosecutors and Biden's defense team throughout the nearly 7-day trial. The memoir walks readers through Biden's highs and lows with addiction to crack cocaine and attempts to get sober. That simple fact makes me always laugh remember when Biden was in office and they found cocaine somewhere in the White House and the Democrats were like, oh, it wasn't Hunter Biden's, it wasn't his. He literally admitted that he was addicted to the stuff. Anyways. He was found guilty on 3 charges, making a false statement on a purchase application of a gun, making a false statement related to information required to be kept by a federally licensed gun dealer, and possession of a gun by a person who is an unlawful user of or addicted to a controlled substance. Biden pleaded not guilty in the case. Biden's legal team did not dispute the former first son's long history of substance abuse, blah, 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 blah. All right. I think that's basically it. I just saw that and I was just like, by the way, he was pardoned too by his daddy, which, I can't totally blame Joe Biden for doing that, but it just makes me laugh because this is just yet another reason to go against the Democrats' philosophy that there's nothing wrong with the Biden family. Joe was just being a good dad the whole time. He was just being a good dad to his son, right? There's nothing going on with Hunter Biden. He's a perfectly, reasonable character, right? There's nothing going on with him. He's good. That was like the message the Democrats pushed about their side for like the longest time, and now we're just getting even more and more evidence to prove that is not true and that it was not all good in the hood, to put it bluntly. All right. Move on to our next story. So talk about Amazon. So Amazon makes a shocking last-minute bid to buy TikTok. So it's from the New York Post. Amazon jumped into the TikTok sweepstakes with a surprise last-minute play by the video streaming app ahead of Saturday's deadline for Chinese parent ByteDance to sell it or face a U.S. ban, the White House said on Wednesday. The e-retail giant, founded by billionaire Jeff Bezos, reportedly submitted an offer letter detailing its proposal that was addressed to Vice President J.D. Vance and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. However, key parties involved in the negotiations on a potential TikTok sale do not appear to be taking Amazon's bid seriously, according to the New York Times, which first reported the story. Other details, such as the dollar value of Amazon's proposal, were not revealed. Trump has until Saturday to find an acceptable buyer for TikTok after issuing an executive order delaying enforcement of a federal law that banned the app unless ByteDance divested. The president could opt to extend the deadline again if terms aren't finalized. This is a real boy who said wolf situation, I feel like, because it was going to be banned and Trump said it wasn't going to be banned, and that he gave an extension. And now I feel like we're a few days away from being banned again. And Trump's going to say, oh, we're giving me another extension. So I feel like Trump is between a rock and a hard place because he doesn't really want TikTok to be banned, but also he has to do something about it because of the law that Congress passed. He can't just repeal it in general, right? He gets smashed by the press. And I feel like the bigger point to be learned here is that this is a big deal. I feel like a lot of people have taken the perspective of TikTok is pointless, TikTok is a meaningless app, TikTok, should be sold off, it shouldn't be being used in the United States, TikTok is a security risk, blah, blah, blah. I'm not here to say if that's true or false. What I'm here to say is that TikTok has become a platform that has shared a ton of information amongst people in the United States. It's one of the key reasons why Trump won the presidency, right? People like Charlie Kirk, people like Ben Shapiro, people who are the big social media influencers on the right were able to leverage TikTok to get out their positions to the general public, right? It really got in the hands of a lot of people. I mean, Trump just blew up on the platform, right? I mean, Kamala was on the platform too, but Trump blew up way more than Kamala ever could have. So I think that regardless of where you stand on TikTok, you wanted to stay around in some capacity or another. I don't care if it gets sold or not. I'm not going to stand by and say it shouldn't be sold or it's not a security risk or anything like that. I haven't seen any evidence that proves to me that it is, and I haven't heard a convincing enough argument to get me to actually delete it off my phone yet. But I think the bigger push here is that, hey, TikTok is being leveraged by conservatives to get out conservative points. And if that all of a sudden disappears, there's going to be one less stream out there for us to get our positions out there to the general public. There's a reason why, I just saw a report that came out that showed that that white men ages 18 to 24 are more conservative than white men in their 70s today. That's a big deal. My generation, Gen Z, is more conservative right now than old folks are. And the perspective was for a while that the older you got, the more conservative you became. But that shows just the opposite, that the movement has really hit young people hard just because of the push the left has put on to our generation, right? Gen Z is not stupid, right? We see what's happening. And taking away that avenue to get those points of perspectives out there you're disarming an entire audience of people who were privy to the conservative agenda for quite a while, and now all of a sudden it's going to disappear. So I hope that an agreement is made to keep TikTok up in one way or another. I'm a big fan of it. I think it's a great app. But we'll see what happens, and we'll be sure to update you on it as soon as that information becomes available. Which is also why you should be following me on X. So I'll be posting on this probably before it gets on the show. All right. Let's talk about Spartacus. Cory Booker, Spartacus. All right. Spartacus, Cory Booker breaks record for longest Senate floor speech. Senator Cory Booker, a Democrat from New Jersey, failed presidential candidate famous for his Spartacus moment, made history on Wednesday with his remarks on the Senate floor criticizing President Trump's policies. The speech began at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday and kept going through the night and into Tuesday. At times, other Democrats gave Booker a small reprieve when they asked him questions. By 7:18 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, Booker broke the record held by the late Strom Thurmond from South Carolina. By the way, he was a Democrat, which was 24 hours and 18 minutes, with a filibuster against the 1957 Civil Rights Act. Yes. The longest up until this point Senate speech was by another Democrat opposing the Civil Rights Act. Just thought you should know. So here's a list, by the way, about some of the longest. So Ted Cruz up here gave the longest one from Republican. His was in 2013. Crazy that Ted Cruz has been in Congress since 2013. Blows my mind. You have some other famous people. Chris Murphy, Democrat, 2016. See that list for yourself. Link in the description down below. But Cory Booker, number one for longest speech. Now his speech was not filibuster. He just got up there and started talking, man. He wasn't even opposing the bill. He was just pissed off. He was just pissed off. He was going to show his constituents what was for. The stunt comes as Democrats face low approval ratings and Schumer grapples with a crisis of confidence after he refused to vote in favor of blocking a GOP-backed bill to avert a partial government shutdown. Booker said he rose with the intention of getting in some good trouble and disrupting normal Senate business for as long as he was physically able because he feared the country was in crisis. Democrats claimed the speech a filibuster, but the New York Times reported that Booker remarks did not qualify as one because it did not come during a debate or a bill or nominee. Ted Cruz tweeted this video of Homer Simpson crying when he broke the record. So sad. So sad. So sad. I think that's all for Cory Booker. Before I get to my point, you know who Cory Booker reminds me of? Like, I was watching him a little bit up there, giving his little speech in front of everyone. Cory Booker reminds me of the Key and Peele bit about the fat-free yogurt. He reminds me of when he played this like fat-free yogurt lady when when Key and Peele did this bit. I know this is a very niche joke. If you don't watch Key and Peele, you don't get it. But it was like a Comedy Central thing. And go watch the bit. Just look up like Key and Peele fat-free yogurt and like watch the whole bit. It's like 4 minutes. It's so funny. But Cory Booker's always reminded me of this guy from this bit. Like if you put that like hat and hair on top of Cory Booker, the resemblance would be uncanny, right? But what I think is so crazy about this is a couple of things. Okay, number one, Democrats have been screaming that Cory Booker is a hero, that Cory Booker is so amazing for getting up there and talking for all this time, blah, blah, blah. And they haven't even watched him for more than like a minute, right? This dude was talking for like 24 hours. He was talking for like an entire day straight. It's kind of crazy that he was talking for that long. But all these Democrats are saying how amazing his speech was and everything, when like 90% of them haven't even watched him for more than a minute, right? So I think that's funny, number one. Number two, I think it's especially funny that he just got up there and was like, I'm just going to talk for 24 hours. I'm not even going to pose a bill. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to talk for that long. Who cares? Who cares? The fact that I feel like Cory Booker felt like he was falling out of the news cycle, which he was. I hadn't heard anything about Spartacus in like years. And all of a sudden he's like back up in the news cycle again. I feel like he was missing out a little bit because all of his Democrat colleagues have been getting all the attention except for him. So like, I gotta do something drastic. It's like, I gotta shake things up in the Senate. The fact that he also said he wanted to disrupt the Senate, I think, is very telling about what Democrats think of how they should function in normal society, which is that if they're not being heard, they should just disrupt everything. Right? You don't see conservatives disrupting things. That's all I'm going to say about that. So, anyways. All right, let's talk about the Wisconsin elections that just happened. So Wisconsin just elected the dangerously liberal judge in Wisconsin. So let's go through this and I'll give my opinions. So talk about this on Wednesday. But the dangerously liberal judge, who we were all feared for in Wisconsin, she did in fact win, which I'm not totally surprised about, to be honest with you. Leftist Judge Susan Crawford won a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court on Tuesday, keeping the court in the control of liberal justices. Crawford's win comes after the most expensive judicial campaign in American history, as more than $90 million was spent on the race. Crawford defeated conservative candidate Brad Schimmel, who was endorsed by President Donald Trump and backed by Trump's top donor, Elon Musk. With an estimated 98.1% of the vote counted on Wednesday morning, Crawford had 55% support compared to Schimmel's 45%. Huge turnouts in the Democrat strongholds of Milwaukee and Dane County fueled Crawford's victory, while the liberal justice won. Wisconsin voters overwhelmingly voted to add voter ID requirement to the state constitution in a win for Republicans. Talk about that in a minute. Schimmel's campaign was boosted by Musk and his America PAC, while Crawford was supported by a cadre of leftist billionaires like George Soros and Illinois Governor J.D. Pritzker, who, of course, we know J.D. Pritzker wants to run for president. Before becoming a judge, Crawford worked as a lawyer for Planned Parenthood, of course she did, and filed lawsuits to block the state's voter ID laws, earning her a label as dangerously liberal by the Wisconsin Republican Party. Funny how she filed lawsuits to block voter ID, but yet voter ID just was put into the state constitution. Both parties saw the race as pivotal for the United States House of Representatives, as Democrats are now expected to challenge Wisconsin's congressional maps, since Crawford's victory has allowed liberal justices on the court to maintain a 4-3 majority. Leftist activists hope that the court will strike down Wisconsin's current congressional maps and mandate election maps more favorable to Democrats. All right. So before we get into all the other stuff, I want to talk about the election maps. So the big push in this was, hey, if we get a Republican on, they're going to favor maps more towards us. If a Democrat gets on there, they're going to favor maps more towards the libs, right? We need a push in this country to realize that we can make nonpartisan congressional maps that are not gerrymandered using computers. Computers have the ability to draw congressional maps that are not partisan to one side or the other. That's what we should be doing. Instead, we still have humans drawing out the little boundaries of where they think the boundaries should be at for these congressional maps to favor their party or the other one, right? It shouldn't even be in the hands of the court to decide if it's constitutional or not. We should be having computers who are drawing out our congressional maps to make it as equal as possible in these districts, to make every district a competitive district and not have all of these stronghold ones, right? We have these districts that are drawn to favor only Republicans or only Democrats, which means that regardless of what is happening in the country, a Republican is always going to win there. Like, we had 2 Republicans who just won in Florida. They both come from very, very Republican areas. There was no way a Democrat would have any shot of winning there. I mean, you basically have to not campaign as a conservative in those districts to lose them, right? So the fact that, we're not drawing these congressional districts using a computer program, I think is wild to me. We use computers for so many other things. It is possible to do, by the way. It's very possible to do these things. So I I laugh a little bit when I see people complain that, oh, the districts are going to be drawn, unfairly, when there's no push right now to have them drawn by computers who can draw them independent of human will and draw them to be all competitive, right? Well, let's talk about the actual election maps, because the other thing I've seen from this is, oh my God, Trump won Wisconsin, and then Wisconsin voted this leftist onto the Supreme Court. Or, oh my God, voter ID won in Wisconsin, but they also voted a liberal judge onto Supreme Court. This election must have been rigged by the Democrats. Was not rigged. Was not rigged by the Democrats. Conservatives need to stop complaining every time one of their candidates loses and say it was rigged. We need to stop saying, same thing with the Democrats. The Democrats do this too, and they say it was rigged also. We need to stop saying that elections were rigged just because the person that we want to win lost, right? I'll explain it to you right now. So here's the map of Wisconsin. So red were all of the counties that Brad Schimmel won. Blue were all the counties that Susan Crawford won. You can see a couple of things. Number one, Green Bay, Milwaukee, and Dane County. So Dane County has Madison, Wisconsin, which of course is a university town. It's a metro area which swings left as it is, right? These are all facts that we know. They overwhelmingly voted for Susan Crawford. So between Dane, so 234,000 votes, 230 plus another 200, that's like what, 450, and then you add in Green Bay, which is like 500. That's almost half of her vote share came from 3 counties in Wisconsin, right? That's where all the people live, right? I can't see a map of the population disparities, but I should pull up the map that showed where all the population of Wisconsin lived. But if you pulled up a map that showed the population centers of Wisconsin, there'd be a big bubble over Madison, a big bubble over Milwaukee, a big bubble over Green Bay, and a whole bunch of little tiny bubbles over all the other counties, right? I mean, you can even see in a lot of these counties, I mean, even in these red counties, she picked up quite a few votes, and you add all that up and you get to where you are, right? The election was not rigged. She won it fairly. It was 55 to 45. She won by 10 points. We have the polling numbers down here that show that, all the projected vote share. I mean, before April 1st, the vote share was 52 to 47, right? That was even before any votes were coming in. So it's not surprising that this turned out to be the way it was. So the other thing I want to show is issue 1, question 1 in Wisconsin, which was voter ID. So you see the only districts that said no to voter ID were Milwaukee County and Dane County. So Madison and Milwaukee cities respectively. I mean, even Green Bay voted by a large margin to enshrine voter ID into the state constitution. Why is this? All available data shows that voter ID is a bipartisan issue. It's an 80-20 issue. That's kind of what we're seeing here with this vote turnout. It was 60-40 for the most part, right? So we had a lot of Democrats who voted in favor of voter ID in the state because it's just a simple issue that goes along with everything that we should be standing for. I mean, voter ID is a bipartisan issue. It's a simple thing to have. It makes sense. It's very straightforward. We need an ID to drive a car. We need an ID to buy alcohol. Why don't we have an ID to vote in elections, right? This makes a lot of sense. So requiring a voter ID, bipartisan issue in the state. And we can see the vote share. So the total vote share for issue 1 was 2.2 million. Total vote share was 2.3 million. So about 100,000 or more voters voted for Supreme Court justices over, question 1, which was on voter ID in Wisconsin. Then the numbers line up. It's not like there was a huge disparity in the number of voters. An election was not stolen. It was won fair and square. It's just how Wisconsin is. Wisconsin's a purple state, right? Wisconsin's a whole lot of Democrats who will vote on Republican issues. Wisconsin's a whole lot of old school kind of hippy-dippy Democrats who will vote for things that are reasonable, such as voter ID, right? Wisconsin's a whole lot of people who vote just simply based on party affiliation, right? They're going down the ballot. They know Susan Crawford is a liberal judge. They don't know anything else about her. They're going to vote for her, right? This is how voting happens, right? I feel like, we on the internet, people like you who are watching shows like this where we're talking about politics and we're very involved in what's happening, don't appreciate that that's not how the vast majority of people are. The vast majority of people show up to vote if they are, and they vote down the ticket based on, simply on the spot, or they've heard a little bit in the background, right? Also, the population of Wisconsin is only about, I think it's only about 6 million people. So this is only what? Like a 33% voter turnout rate, 2.3 million people. Makes sense in an election like this. You don't have a lot of voter turnout in special elections such as these ones. And it also tends to swing older, right? You have all the old people who show up, all the retirees who don't have anything else to do with their time who show up to vote. A lot of them tend to vote for Democrats, right? Just how it is, just the fact of the matter, right? So the next time you see someone saying that this election was stolen, it wasn't. It was not stolen. That's just how it turned out. You win some, you lose some, right? The other thing is Scott Presler has been talking about this election for months and months and months now leading up to this. He's been in Wisconsin all year, right? This only started getting coverage from mainstream Republican sources, from other people out there, like recently, right? Scott Presler has been trying to get this going for a while. The campaign was not there like it should have been for Brad Schimmel. It's just the fact of the matter. But people love voter ID apparently in Wisconsin. So only lost every county voted except for 2 of them. So good on Wisconsin for voter ID. Hopefully that means that elections in the state will be even more secure than they already are. Let's move on to our last story of the day. So the real winner of all of this goes to JD Vance, apparently. So this comes from Blaze Media. So a real winner, Vance goes to war online with liberal defenders of mistakenly deported MS-13 member. Liberal critics are upset about the deportation of an illegal alien found by multiple judges to be a danger to the community. The Trump administration deported multiple plane loads of suspected terrorists to El Salvador on March 15th to be imprisoned in the southern nation's terrorist confinement center. Attorneys for the government confirmed in a Monday court filing that one of the illegal aliens sent packing was removed because of an administrative error. An article in The Atlantic concerning the accidental deportation apparently left certain bleeding heart liberals with the impression that the deportee was an innocent father betrayed by his adoptive government. Of course they did. Of course they did. Vice President J.D. Vance rained on liberal critics' grief parade, pointing out... Vice President J.D. Vance rained on liberal critics' grief parade. That's quite the sentence right there. Pointing out they were rending garments over the deportation of a foreign national found by more than one immigration court to be a danger to the community as a member of the terrorist organization MS-13. Vance's suggestion was imprudent to throw a blah 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 blah. Okay, so here's some background. So after stealing into the U.S. illegally and without inspection in 2011, Salvadoran national Abrego Garcia traveled to Maryland, where his older brother lived. Justice Department attorneys indicated that in March 2019, Abrego Garcia was summoned to appear in removal proceedings during a bond hearing. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement stated that a confidential informant flagged Abrego Garcia as a member of MS-13. The illegal alien's bond was denied, and the court reportedly finding that Abrego Garcia was a danger to the community. Abrego Garcia appeared appealed the decision to the Board of Immigration Appeals, where an immigration judge determined that in April 2019 that, quote, the determination that the respondent is a gang member appears to be trustworthy and is supported by other evidence in the record. Just as liberals rushed to bemoan the Trump administration's plan to deport Janet Vazriga, a Mexican fugitive who stole into the U.S. illegally and was criminally convicted for using fake documents, they saw in Abrego Garcia another lost cause worth championing. Former Obama speechwriter Jon Favreau stated a link to the Atlantic article on X, writing, quote, any comment on this at Marco Rubio? How about you at JD Vance, at Elon Musk? Are you just admitted to accidentally sending an innocent father from Maryland to a torture dungeon in El Salvador, and you refuse to do anything about it? Favreau said in a subsequent tweet, quote, this is effing monstrous. Vance responded, quote, my comment is that according to the court document you apparently didn't read, he was a convicted MS-13 gang member with no legal right to be here. Quote, my father comment, continued the vice president, quote, is that I'm gross to get fired up about the gang member getting deported while ignoring citizens they victimize. The vice president shared screenshots of the relevant court documents, noted further that 1, the man is an illegal immigrant with no right to be here in our country. 2, an immigration judge determined that he was a member of the MS-13 gang. And 3, because he is not a citizen, he does not get a full jury trial by peers. In other words, whatever due process we're entitled to, he received. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson told NBC News in a statement Tuesday that Abrego Garcia is a member of the brutal MS-13 gang. We have intelligence reports that he is involved in human trafficking. Quote, whether he is in El Salvador or a detention facility in the U.S., he should be locked up, added the spokesperson. Remarkable that the Atlantic and other MSM continue to do the bidding of these various gangs and ignore their victims. Absolutely true. Right? He came in this country illegally. He was identified to be a member of a terrorist organization. He'd be thrown out of it and put in prison. Simple as that. Right? And you'll notice how the left will take any action they can to hold it against conservatives, especially the Trump administration, say, oh, look, they did something wrong. They did an accident. This guy, he's just an innocent father. He's just a father, guys. He's just a dad trying to do his job. They did the same thing with Joe Biden. Oh, look at Joe Biden. He's just a sweet old man, right? He's harmless. He's a sweet old man. Look at him smelling the kids. He's just a sweet old man, right? Isn't that so cute? He's just a sweet old man, right? They're always running cover for each other to try and cover up the fact that these people are criminals, these people should be locked up, and these people are getting up to actions that are no good, right? Apparently this guy's a human trafficker. Throw him in prison. Send him away. Good job, JD Vance. I'll take it. Fiery debates by JD Vance. I love it. I love that we have a vice president that can actually string a conversation together and not use the word electric school bus or Venn diagram or laugh during one of them. Well, folks, that is all we have today for this episode of Spin Cycle Live. I have been your host, Nathan Hale. Please join us back here on Monday on YouTube, X, Rumble, Instagram, 5 p.m. Eastern time every Monday and Wednesday. We will give you those hot stories that you are so looking for. We had so much to cover today. I'm glad we got through in about 35 minutes, right? We flew through a lot of these things. I thought it was going to take us way longer than that. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Rumble. Follow me on X at HomoNation. Follow the show on X at Spin Cycle Live. And, of course, follow us on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at HomoNation as well. But with that, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. We will see you back here on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern, for the next episode of Spin Cycle Live. I will see you all again very soon. With that, I've been Nathan Hale. This has been Spin Cycle Live. Peace out.